Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. After a week off, I'm still Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. This is a live show. If you have any questions, put them in the comments section. We will ask them if you're watching this after the fact. Again, put the questions in there and we will ask them. Just kind of little housekeeping event here. The Canadian Blockchain Consortium is having a event through Stampede, which is going to be some education on Bitcoin mining. There's going to be some tours of some facilities around here. We have government officials coming up from Texas. So if you're interested, the link will be in the comments section shortly. But I want to get right after this. Right now, we have Elle and Fiona of BioMimir. How are you today?
We're doing good. It's a beautiful sunny day for once. So.
After 2 days of rain, yes, we got sun. So I guess I kind of wanted to talk a little bit. We met through the startup TNT process. You guys have done that, and we've garnered a relationship. You obviously won our event, which was awesome. Congratulations! You just closed your round. We'll talk about some of that, but before we get into it, I would like to I love it when we have co-founders on together because I like hearing the story. There's always a story behind everything. So how did you guys meet, and how did you kind of come up with that? Hey, we're going to start a company together.
I always knew I wanted to have this company. Like when I was 16, I was reading about neural implants for especially Parkinson's. And I saw that inflammation was the problem. And I started reading more on medical devices, and it always came back to that inflammation. So that's sort of what I wanted to figure out as I went into school, and something I've been chasing down since then. And I was lucky enough to work with Dr. May Griffith, who is one of the world's preeminent researchers in collagen, but also because we were making implants that were actually going into humans. We had to fight that problem, and we did find really nice solutions eventually. Yeah.
So Elle might have known that she wanted to do this, and she was 16. I came to biomaterials as a much later career, and that's how we met. Is I was offered a job in Sweden doing clinical trials manufacturing for one of Dr. Griffith's clinical trials. And I moved to Sweden, and I met Elle. And for those of you who don't know, we're married. So we fell in love at work and moved back to Canada. And when I finished graduate school, I got mad that the research group made amazing things. They literally make the blind see. That's what they do. They make corneal grafts and corneal trauma fillers. But none of that technology was jumping from our research universities to commercialization because there just weren't enough people who were capable of crossing the valley of death. So for me, BioMimir is my response to making sure that the amazing technology that we build actually makes it to people in the world to use.
Well, I mean, I guess, it's a different kind of story, obviously, with how you met overseas, coming in, falling in love, getting married, making a company out of it. I can honestly say that hasn't happened before as a founding story. So this is the first on Telling It Like It Is. And I love that. I love firsts, and I love happy romances. So that's even better. But I want to talk about, you touched a little bit there on kind of the inspiration of the product itself. So why don't we dive a little bit into what BioMimir is and what you are trying to help the world with.
All right, so BioMimir is a medical device company, and our technical specialty is making biomaterials. So biomaterials are often, but not always, natural polymers derived from the body. So things like collagen, things like hyaluronic acid, things like cellulose. Alice here specializes in making synthetic biomimetics, so polymers that act like those materials. And our goal is to make medical products that help you to heal yourself better. So the lead product here is a liquid to solid hydrogel wound filler, which I know is a mouthful. But basically, it's a product that you apply as a liquid, so it can be any wound, big, flat, and shallow, narrow, and deep. And then it's going to cross-link into a solid And that solid matches your skin's natural properties. So it's elastic, it's compressible, you can move. And then because it's made of collagen and a synthetic biomimetic polymer, it helps to reduce inflammation and reduce fibrotic scar tissue formation. So it helps people to heal better. So what we want to do with products, this is the lead, but what we want to do with products overall is use our polymer technology to make really accessible regenerative medicine products. So things that are used by dermatologists and ER doctors and paramedics as part of everyday medicine to help people to heal better.
And Elle, can you expand on that at all, or you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, so we think we have a good technical solution to one of the big problems in medicine, not just regenerative medicine. The thing we have managed here is to make a non-toxic anti-inflammatory solution, and that's the IP that we're in the process of protecting. We think there's a lot of problems in very different systems that this will solve. From anything from these permanently implantable materials, but also when it comes to people who have temporary implants that can be really problematic. If you have underlying conditions, you might have issues tolerating hard plastics in your body. And we have a way of making those much more friendly to the body. And I really want to see this. I want to expand this, and I want to build this into something really massive, so that we can tackle all of these problems. So we're blasting forward with this lead product right now, and I think it's a great product. But I also want to see this as a way of building something that really transforms how we do healthcare and anything that interfaces with the body.
So I know you, Fiona, you mentioned that you kind of like the ER, the dermatology, things like that. Is that obviously going to be one aspect of your business to focus on kind of the trauma? That's something there. Will there be something, eventually? So, I was mentioning that our daughter fractured her ankle, but would there be something that I can just go buy on the shelf eventually that I can, put on there and cover with a Band-Aid?
Hopefully. So our lead product is sort of a prescription only. It's intended for wound care clinics, so doctors and nurses. The second product that we're building is really intended for field trauma. So think paramedics, military medics. And then the third product we have in pipeline, and now our investors are all going to think we're really distracted. But the third thing we want to make is like a topical liquid bandage that is actually an over-the-counter product you would be able to buy at the pharmacy, for smaller cuts and abrasions. So I think in this case, your daughter might probably benefit from like one of the prescription ones as well as an over-the-counter one, depending on how that's used in in different surgeons' workflow. But we have all sorts of grades of products planned in the long term.
Well, I love hearing that. That's a good thing, right? Plans and plans and plans and plans and expansion and extra goals. So I guess on this, I kind of want to touch a little bit on the regulation, and I'm sure they differ on each section of each silo of your business. And obviously the Canadian, we've been lucky enough as an investor to understand some of this, some of the differences between, Canada and United States. And I know that you're going to go to the United States first. So why don't you talk a little bit about why you're going to go to the United States and maybe a little bit the differences in regulations, and then maybe we can discuss, some of the other regulations about, being a topical that's over the counter, that differences from being a medical grade or prescription.
Yeah. So medical devices are classified based on how much contact they have with patients, and then how dangerous they are. So in Canada, we have 4 classes of medical devices ranging from, things that barely touch you, say, thermometers or, the light that looks in your ear at the doctor's office, all of the way up to a level 4 device, which would be something like a pacemaker that literally keeps people alive. Our product is a little bit unique. So because it contains a collagen and that collagen is an animal-derived collagen, it's not classified the same way in Canada and in the United States. So in the United States, it's considered sort of an unclassified but class 2 level device. So they have three levels. It's in the middle. But in Canada, because it contains an animal collagen, it's class 4. So it has a much higher level of regulation. So the reason to go to the United States first isn't because we don't love Canada. It's because there's a really clear pathway for regulation as a much lower class device. And when regulatory for medical devices is a little bit different than drugs. So when you evaluate medical devices, you're looking more at safety and less at efficacy. Not that they're not looking at safety for drugs, but drugs have a much higher burden of proof that they are better than what is on the market. For medical devices, the FDA does something called substantial equivalence. And substantial equivalence basically means if I take my brand new product and I compare it to a product that's already on the market, I'm going to say they're the same in terms of safety, they work the same, and then I can get an approval based on that. And one of the perks of the substantial equivalence model with the FDA and a lower class device is that's reliant mostly on toxicology and large animal studies and less reliant on human clinical trials. So because you have such a long history of these devices being safe, you're able to say it's substantially equivalent, and then you can do clinical trials post-market. And for a small startup like us, that saves us a lot of money because clinical trials are one of the most expensive parts of the regulatory pathway.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, and I'm sure that's probably going to be even a little different if you go to have a topical that's going to be on a Band-Aid for general use.
So a topical is a class 1 device, like if it's just a barrier forming device. So it has a lower level of regulation as well. It would be the same class of device in Canada and the United States. And it has, like a slightly lower level of evidence. So it would do substantial equivalence as well. But because it's not, we do toxicology based on sort of 3 ideas. So one is, what is it in contact with? Is it bandaged or surface compromised device? They're not in contact with bones. They don't recirculate blood. The second is, is it applied on top? Is it an implant? How is it put into the body? And then the third is, how long will it be there, right? So our lead product is intended to be a permanent implantable. It has a higher bar for toxicology than something that is, you put on top and it's only expected to last for a couple of days before you reapply. So there's differences there in how we look at toxicology for those products. But yeah, and I mean, we haven't really looked into the class 1 device because we're so focused on our lead product right now, but we'll get there soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the down the road stuff is sometimes hard to focus on. When you're just
Well, I mean, we're trying to set this up to have a good pathway for product development, and I will admit I am not one to scale a product. It's not where my field of expertise is. So at this point, the lead product, the formulation is set. We can't fidget with it anymore. We can't change anything more. And now everything that is left is like nail down every single detail so that the package doesn't need to change anymore, because when it goes to FDA, it needs to be in the box that we will put in the hands of the customer. So we need to set everything there. And that's really where Fiona's expertise is. So at this point, that's done. And that means I don't really have a role as the chief scientific officer. I no longer have a role in product development for the first product. It's now in the hands of our COO and our CEO and our director of quality. So what I am doing is chasing down these next in line products that Fiona is talking about. And yeah, right now the focus is on this second generation product that was mentioned. There would be a more thermostable variant that's intended for field use. something that we can toss into the back of an ambulance that can be used out in the field. And one of the main differences there is this is a product that it would be fine to leave in place, but it also needs to be a product that we can remove if we need it, and it needs to be easy for a surgeon to remove this and to be confident that there's nothing left. Because if you stabilize someone in the field, you don't want to lock in dirt and say broken bones or anything like that in a place where it's not supposed to go. So we've been working on these problems to be able to launch a second set of products there. And this would actually also end up being a lower class device in Canada. I think it's still going to be class 2 device in the US, but in Canada it ends up going down probably from class 4 to class 2.
Well, again, I'm talking with Fiona and Elle of BioMimir. You can just click on the website in the comment section to find out any more information about their company. Well, I kind of want to ask a little bit of question about the biomaterials, right? I mean, again, remember you're going to explain this to a layman here that kind of doesn't understand it. So if you get too scientific, I might not have any follow-up questions. But I mean, these when we're talking about these everyday medical problems, whether it be from the trauma or open wounds or a topical, what is the history of this regenerative medicine space? What have they been focused on?
So when we look at regenerative medicine, one of the first things that people said was, well, you're mostly made of collagen. Collagen is the major connective tissue in the human body. And we find collagen also in other mammals. So the big ones in regenerative medicine are, porcine or bovine collagens, or even in some cases, plant-based collagens.
Pig and cow for the ones who aren't so good on the Latin.
Yeah. So if I take collagen out of an animal and put it back into a person, it should help them heal. And so there were products in the early 90s that are like collagen powders or collagen gels or these collagen impregnated bandages, and they were sort of the first generation of this in wound healing. And then a group of scientists took a look at this and they said, well, if collagen is good, and just the collagen from your connective tissues is good, what if I were to take a whole sheet of tissue, so something like skin, take the live cells out, keep the structure that the cells live in, so the scaffold, and put it back into people? And those are extracellular matrix products, and they were sort of the second generation of this in sort of biomaterials and regenerative medicine. The downside to these is, although they do a great job of regenerating, decellularizing tissue is incredibly expensive. So we're talking like $5,000 for, like a little square. And they have a lot of limitations because they have to be a sheet. And most people's wounds aren't like a nice, tidy, 10 by 10 centimeter square. So we come from a third sort of generation of biomaterial scientists who said, what's in the body already is great. But what if we could design something that behaved like that was even better? And that's what Elle does. That's what synthetic biomimetics do, is they say, could I make something that is like collagen? Could I make something that is like hyaluronic acid, but that I have designed on purpose to be better than those things? And that's sort of really where we come in, is like we make synthetic, we use both collagen, an animal extracted product, and a synthetic biomimetic together in one product to get better outcomes than you can get with just something that was, extracted from an animal alone.
Well, see, I understand that.
I've been working on this spiel for the non-scientist. It's taken a while.
Well, and that's good, and I get it. So and now that you're kind of, you're let's talk a little bit about where you're going now, right? I mean, you've just closed your round, which is great, just kind of under 700K. I don't want to get. I want to have a short term before a long term answer here before I get to that. So short term wise, now your company has got to a space. It's got some funding. What are you looking at to do? Let's say over the next 6 months to a year.
So we have kind of like 3 major things that we're trying to accomplish. So the first is to clear our regulatory pathway with the FDA. So we're about to have our pre-submission meeting with them where we lay out our plan going forward and say, hey, do you think this is okay? Do you have any feedback for us? Are there more tests you'd like us to do? Because that gives us a complete roadmap for what we would need to get our marketing approval. The second is to do our pilot manufacturing. So thus far, we've been using prototypes that Elle made by hand in the lab, and that's great. But we need to start looking at how do I manufacture this at scale? How do I make 10,000 units, not 10 units? So we are in process, looking at manufacturing facilities and kitting and packaging plants in order to have, the actual box that you would give to a doctor. And then the third thing that we're doing is we have another animal study hopefully coming up that will look at our products in a diabetes model. So we've tested this in straight surgical models in rats already. And now we want to test this in rats with a diabetes model to see if this will work for some of the harder to heal wounds in people like diabetic ulcers.
I don't think it's a hopefully coming up. Unless,
it's not hopefully coming up. It's scheduled. But that's what's on the docket for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hopefully, in scientific terms, means it's in the docket, right?
Yeah, it's everything is there. It just needs to be actually done now. So we have a team signed up to do it, and yeah, and that is also the study that will kind of underpin our application to the FDA as one of the study. We have 2 different sets of experiments that will prove that this is as safe and as efficient as things already on the market. I mean, we will obviously vastly outperform them, but that's not important for the FDA. What's important is that it's at least as safe.
So it's got to be exciting having a little bit of capital for a runway for adding to your team. I guess what about team wise? What are you looking to add here in the next little bit?
So we have recently onboarded our director of quality assurance. So Ash is there making sure that we meet our regulatory requirements to produce products like this. We're fortunate enough to have Cassandra, who's our intern this summer, and she's been helping us out here in the lab in Calgary. We're currently looking for a lab manager for our research lab in Sherbrooke. So if you know a polymer chemist who wants to move to Sherbrooke, let us know.
Or a process chemist, a process engineer, any of these. Please send me an email.
And then we're also looking to onboard like a fractional CFO to help us do our projections going forward for some of our manufacturing and our cash flow.
Well, interesting. Now, I guess we could probably talk after about a fractional CFO. There are some good ones here in Calgary that you might want to look at.
So we already have one.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, then we don't need one. No introductions needed. So I want to think long term. I want to think big. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to do that when you're in you're in right in there every day, banging on everything. So let's say everything goes perfect, and you get everything out there. The tests go good. What is your your BHAG, your 5-year vision for BioMimir?
So in 5 years, we're hoping that the lead product goes to market and pulls about 10 to 20% market share on all complex wounds going through wound care clinics. I'm also hoping that by then we're launching our second product for trauma as well. And that we're doing that both in Canada and the US. So we'll take our lead product to market in the US, then we'll wait until we're in post-marketing surveillance, take that data, come back to Canada, launch it here, launch it in the European Union, take our second product to market as well. I think that both of those things are doable within 5 years.
I'm much more ambitious than that. I want to be in the market in more markets than that. Like I want, especially with the things with lower a class. It's like my vision is the same. I'm more optimistic, so I'm like, no, that's in 4 years. In 5 years, we will already have several products out in India, Europe, Canada.
One of the beautiful things about biomaterials and regenerative medicine, because I think a lot of people, when they think about regenerative medicine, is that they think about cell products, stem cells or CAR Ts for oncology, right? Those are great technologies, but they're not really globally scalable. You really need to live within, a day's commute of a major hospital with a cell processing facility to access technology like that. Yeah. The beauty of products like ours is that they can go global. And we design them so that they are as easy to use as possible so that they are globally deployable. The idea is to make products that aren't just good for a doctor in a perfectly sterile OR here in Canada, but also products that can go into the field all around, all over the world. And so that's where we're aiming is, we don't just want to make products for here at home, but we want to make products for everybody in the world who should have access to regenerative medicine.
Well, I think that's a good goal. Why would you just want to protect people and make people safe in North America? It's a global market, and people are getting hurt all over the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess I do have, I mean, this is a question that I just love asking because I hear so many different answers, and probably about 20 or 30 episodes in, 250 or so episodes ago, I started posting them on Fridays because I just love the different answers I get from everybody. So I'm going to, ask you each one of these. So, Elle, I can start with you. If you had one piece of advice for a startup or entrepreneur, what would that be?
Worry less, run faster. I think the thing that I see people stumble over is more insecurities than anything else. And what we're doing is difficult in a way that nothing else I've ever done is difficult in. It's like you can't figure it out in advance. You have to figure it out as you're doing the thing. So like go full speed ahead from day one. I think it's the only way to do it.
No, I love it. Fiona?
I think my suggestion is to not wait until you think you're ready and you have the capital. I think that a lot of people let their personal finances limit their vision. And I can tell you as three people, we haven't talked very much about Ben, our third co-founder, but we do have a third co-founder and his name is Ben. But, when Elle and I and Ben founded this company, we did not have massive intergenerational wealth. There's no trust funds. We are two people who had just come out of grad school who are not very well paid and one former business executive. Almost 2 years later, we've raised close to $1 million in capital from non-dilutive funding sources and in pre-seed funding. So, and if we'd waited until I thought I made enough money to be safe to start a company, I'd still be waiting. I'd probably still be waiting in a decade. So I think you should take the leap. Know that there's Canada, if you're in the prairies especially, has a great innovation ecosystem. There's lots of small vouchers to get you started, lots of incubators and accelerators to give you the expertise that you need to grow, lots of willing angel investors. So don't wait until you think you have the money and you're safe to start, because you'll never be safe. But the money and the expertise you need is out there, and the community is more than willing to help you find them.
The community is fantastic, and as you said, like Alberta Innovates, and all of them out there are there and willing and sit down and have coffees or whatever it takes to lend an ear to help. And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of hoping that you would say go slow, and then we can have a whole new discussion on how do you guys talk about running fast and going slow.
No, I don't think either of us ever go slow. We try to always run. I also want to like a big shout out to Innovate Calgary, because you mentioned about Innovates and they are great, but like for us, Innovate Calgary really were one of the first groups that believed in us and like invested in us and helped us. They've been amazing, and they are the reason why we are in the prairies, why we are in Calgary. And so yeah, a huge thank you to them for allowing us to do this.
I love it. I mean, I'm a mentor through them, and I've been lucky enough to work for or sit down with a handful of companies. I love what they do. I'm a huge fan of them. Obviously, as are you. So, I mean, again, like I speak around the world, on podcasts, and everybody is jealous of what we have. Like we have a really great startup ecosystem here, and it's supportive, not only financially, but also from the mentor side and the advice side. And that doesn't matter if it's right at the beginning, it maybe startup TNT, or to when you're scaling at the CDL, Rocky side. Like, I mean, we've just got everything and in between, and it's so great just to be part of this community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But again, I am so grateful that you guys came on, shared your story. I'm excited to be part of this journey with you as well. So again, thank you so much for what you're doing. Again, you guys need any help, anything, you just reach out, and I'm sure I'll see you at a few TNT events over the summer, even though I spend a little bit of the time at the lake, because that's my time away with the family. So, but I'm sure we will, we'll run into you for a beer here sometime soon.
Yeah, well, we're always around. Like if someone is out on the scene in Calgary, we will be there.
That is excellent. Well, again, anybody wants some information on BioMimir, check into the comment section, click on the website, and you'll be able to find it. And again, Al and Fiona, thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will chat soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you
Bye-bye,
so much for
everybody.
having us.